Guys. Okay, so thank you for joining us here today for our LinkedIn Live webinar series from Big Orange Squeeze a Day. Today we have a guest, Tim Rettig from Intrust IT. Tim has had multiple acquisitions in recent years and has done an ESOP with his MSP, managed service provider firm. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Margie. Yeah, as Margie said, founder and CEO of Intrust IT in Cincinnati, Ohio. I founded the company 32 years ago while in college, and we became an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan company, owned by the employees about 5 years ago, so 2019. An interesting part of that is my father also had a software and IT company that he started in the 70s, and he sold his company to his employees as well 20 years ago. So second generation ESOP entrepreneur is what I like to call myself. So that's me.
Great. Well, Tim and I had a great conversation on some of the things that they look for when they are purchasing companies, and I thought that would be a great topic for a webinar. So today we're going to cover seven essential elements every MSP or any business needs to nail down to have a smooth sale. We've already introduced ourselves. What we're going to cover today is a little bit about interest in the acquisitions. We're going to hit the stages of mergers and acquisitions. We're going to hit Tim's ESOP story. And then if we have time, we might go into some marketing strategies that Intrust does to really leverage their ESOP to show the value for the people who choose to work with Intrust IT. All right. Great. All right, Tim, anything you want to add to what you already shared about Intrust IT?
Yeah, so just in terms of the mergers and acquisitions side of things, that's not on this slide. So I've been involved in the buy or sell side of M&A about 12 times now, where I've bought and sold parts of my company, where like at one point I had a software development, app development group, and I sold that. I had a web development group, I sold that. And then within the last, since we became an ESOP, I've bought 4 other companies as well that have folded into Intrust. I have an acquisition right now that we should be closing at the end of this month. And we're currently forecasting to do 1 or 2 more acquisitions next year. That's part of our continual growth plan, is to add 1 to 2 new acquisitions per year. So that's what we're up to.
Fantastic. So next, I thought we'd cover some of these mergers and acquisition stages that you had shared with us. High level, tell us how that works so people know the stages.
Yeah, so the initial contact and non-disclosure agreement. So we might meet another company at like a user group meeting for ConnectWise, or we might reach out via phone call or mailer to companies that we're interested in acquiring. And at that point, we start talking, and the first thing we want to do is put an NDA in place so that they know that we're not going to disclose their information publicly, that they're looking for sale, as well as they're not going to disclose anything we're doing to anybody else as well. And usually at that point, we ask for 3 years of financial information from the company. So they turn over their books to us, and then we ask some questions in that. At that point, we may ask for some other reports, like a list of a report to show income concentration, revenue concentration across customers or something like that, with no customer information. Normally, they'll just say customer A, customer B, customer C, et cetera. Same thing, we may ask for a list of employees without employee names, maybe just titles, what they do, what their responsibilities are in the organization. So just some general information so we can try and figure out, what the company's worth so that we can make an offer. And that offer is in the form of a letter of intent, you can see there. So this is a non-binding document. It's literally a letter that's sent that says, hey, we propose to buy your company for X amount of dollars. We would like to do that 2 or 3 months from now. Normally we state a date in that document. And sometimes that's a fixed number, sometimes a multiple of revenue that we still have to figure out. And sometimes we'll lay out maybe what the structure of that looks like in that letter of intent. And then at that point, we're in an exclusive relationship. We're kind of beyond going dating. We're at that point, they're not supposed to be talking to or seeking any other buyers. So it's an exclusive relationship. There's a timeline where we go through and do the due diligence. At that point, it is a avalanche of information that's requested. Normally you get a list of, it could be 20, it could be 50 items that is going to be asked for, from bank statements to tax forms. It depends if the bank's involved, they're going to want a lot more information. So quite a bit of information is then passed back and forth from that company that we're looking to acquire. And then at that point, during that time, there may be some deal structure items that come up where we find out we'll pull a credit report on the company to see if they have any loans in place, so we can figure out if what we're buying is what's called unencumbered, so that make sure that there are no liens against any of the items that we're buying. If there are, we have to then talk to the bank to make sure that they'll release that. So there's a lot of discussions around that. What employees exactly are coming over? Sometimes we're buying a part of a company. Sometimes we're buying the whole company. So all those things are figured out. A purchase agreement is ironed out. For the size transactions that we're doing, usually that document is anywhere from a dozen to 20 pages, something like that. If you get into really large deals that could be in the tens of millions of dollars, you might have a couple 100-page purchase agreement where, every single employee is listed out, every single piece of equipment, all the agreements are listed, all that kind of stuff. And a closing date is selected, and on that closing date, all the documents are signed and the initial payment is made. If the bank's involved, they'll make the payment. Sometimes money goes into an escrow account for some portion of the earnout or something like that. And then the real work begins, which is the actual integration of all the employees and customers and everything into the company, unless it's being bought just to run as a standalone organization, which I've done that in the past too. I bought a company, totally left it stand alone, no integration into my company. So that's a lot easier than trying to integrate it into an existing one.
Excellent. Thanks for outlining that to us. I was going to share a little resource alert here, a book that you had recommended a while back, Built to Sell. It's a business fable about two particular people going through a sale of a company. Just a great resource that you had shared with us one time, and I just want to share it with other people.
Yeah, that's a great book. If you're thinking about selling your company, they outline exactly how to structure your company to sell it.
Super easy read too. Easy read. All right, so now we're going to hit the 7 things that Tim shared that are very interesting that they look for companies that they do want to purchase, the things that they look for. So first of all, Tim had mentioned a clean set of books.
Yeah, so I think this is in opposite. Normally, like a top 7, you start with 7 and go down to the most important one.
Sorry.
Fine. This way you can start dozing off towards the end of this. So this is probably the most important thing that we look for, is actually having clean financials that you provide. And the biggest things that come into there is a lot of owners will sometimes send personal expenses through their books. We get so many times where the companies trying to sell for millions of dollars, and yet they're showing that they have made no money for the past 5 years because the owner is sending all of his personal expenses through the books. So being able to separate out, you can do that. I mean, legally you may not be able to, the IRS may not like that, but if you do that, you need to be able to document and have that information actually separated out so that you can show this is discretionary owner spending. But unfortunately, a lot of owners like to try and bury all those expenses within their regular books so that the IRS can't spot it as easily during audit. Unfortunately, that's going to hurt you when you go to sell your company. And we get some companies that some unforeseen thing happens in their life and they decide they need to sell their company. We have an organization we're talking to right now who has had some health issues. They weren't planning to sell their company, and right now the company looks like it's worthless because it's been making pretty much breaking even or losing money, and trying to unwind all of the financial things that this person is doing is very difficult to do. So it makes it very much less attractive to us to want to buy the company because we don't know what other things might be lying in wait, surprises for us to find within their books and within their agreements and those types of things. So having very clear and having an accountant that's helping you or doing your books for you rather than having you do them yourselves. We talked to another company where the person was showing again that he's not making any money because he keeps buying all these big things, like he bought his building and he buys a car and he's expensing those, which you can't do. You can do section 179 depreciation on the car, but you can't do that on a building. And he wasn't even depreciating the building, he was just showing it as a rent expense. So things that don't make sense at all, and trying to figure all that out costs us a lot of time and makes it less likely that we're going to want to do a deal with something like that.
Great stories. That hiding a building was a very funny story. That I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
Next, you mentioned established processes and systems.
Yeah, so having actual, this is how, when we go in and we want to find out exactly how things work, not that it needs to be documented to the nth degree, but being able to provide that information. And a lot of times we are talking to the owner and he doesn't want any of his employees to be aware of the sale. And when we ask how something's done, because things aren't documented, he has to go ask people. And then of course they're going to want to know, why are you asking that? So having some general documentation around how things happen throughout the organization, even just an org chart as an example, is helpful information that's going to be asked for as part of the due diligence.
Excellent, excellent. I was going to share a little resource here too in the traction book, the EOS traction book. This is, having our way of doing things documented. And another resource that we use is that Trainual is a software we use to document how we do all the processes that we do. So
Perfect
just wanted to
example. And I don't think we have it in here, but EOS, we've bought 2 companies that run EOS, and that makes it a lot easier for us to integrate them into our company. So we look at that as a positive in terms of acquisition targets if you're running EOS, for sure.
same language, everybody's using the same language, probably makes a big difference.
Yep.
Great. All right. Fair compensation for owners. You mentioned this as well.
Yeah, this is very similar to trying to hide things in the books, where another company who's preparing to sell will show they're making a whole bunch of money because they don't pay themselves anything. And we have to go back in and we have to add fair compensation for the owner to show that, when we buy this company, we're going to need to have a person that especially if you're involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. But there's so many times we go into a company where it's a husband and wife working there. He doesn't pay his wife anything. And he pays himself very little. And as soon as we buy that, well, we're going to need to hire a person that does all the things that his wife does. And we're going to need to hire a person that does all the things that the owner did. And we're going to need to pay them. And we're going to add that back into the costs of operating that company. So yeah, having a fair compensation for yourself is very important to do.
Excellent. Really cool. Great. So standardized customers agreements was the next thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, so this is, we have acquired some companies in the past where they had handshake agreements, or every single agreement was different, not well documented. So the company was worth less because of that. Not worthless, but they were worth less than if they would have everything buttoned up and the same. So having all those agreements structured the same way with the terms and conditions, and having a renewal that happens on a regular basis where, we'll see that this was last signed 10 years ago and they haven't updated it since, and they're doing all these new things that aren't documented anywhere. So just having them current, up to date, makes it a heck of a lot easier. And the other thing in the terms and conditions where it can be assignable, so that the agreement can be assigned to the new owner is important too, because in most of the acquisition sizes that we're looking at, and for most MSPs, it's a asset sale. So you're selling your agreements, you're selling your clients, you're selling your intellectual property and software and everything, but your stock stays with you. So technically those agreements that are signed with your company are reassigned to the new owner. So you need to make sure in your agreement that it says that this can be assigned. In some cases, it may, if you have a larger agreement, some companies will require that they receive notice or that they have some approval or something like that. But that should be rare and not in every single one of your agreements.
Yeah, I liked how you shared how, it's really kind of difficult if you have unique custom agreements for each person. So having a standard package that you're selling, that's a great reason to have that. I thought that was a great tip too.
Yeah, and as part of our due diligence, we will get agreements from every single customer that they have, and we'll go through and make sure that they're all the same. We'll have a spreadsheet that has, all their terms, their payment terms, all that information, and see where their differences are. And what happens sometimes, they will have agreements missing. And when that happens, then it reduces the value of the company. So we might have a letter of intent set, signed for a certain amount, but then as we go through, we find out that they are missing agreements or they don't have them standardized like they said they did until we get down in the weeds.
Very helpful. Unified technology stack. I think it means one thing for managed service providers, and then, I think there's like some takeaways for other types of business owners as well here to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. So you can be a lot more efficient if every single one of your customers is using the same backup rather than supporting 6 different versions. Obviously, the larger your organization is, the more likely is you're going to have different solutions for different things. But for most of the companies that we're dealing with that are, a dozen or 2 dozen employees and they're doing 5 million revenue or whatever, we're expecting them to have pretty much, one backup solution, one RMM solution, one of everything that they're using across their client stack and not supporting all different kinds of different things.
For other types of businesses considering sale, if you're looking at it from what kind of IT support do they have in place? Is that something that matters? Do you feel for other types of businesses, sales?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, so we also do due diligence for our clients that are doing acquisitions, and we'll go out and do cybersecurity risk assessments. And if those companies, in some cases, we find that they've already been breached. So they're looking to buy this company. We go in and we do an evaluation and find out, oh, they, have these email boxes that have been breached currently. So having cybersecurity in place when you're going to sell is very, very important. Unfortunately, some of these companies, these owners try to reduce their expenses to get a company ready for sale. And one of the things they'll do is they'll cut cybersecurity costs, spending so that they can make more money, but then they find out they get breached and the company's worth, it reduces the value of the company. So that winds up biting them in the behind.
That would be, yeah, but that hurts the value quite a lot.
Yeah.
You mentioned employee documentation. That was a good tip too.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of the, but even before the letter of intent is signed, they're going to expect, the buyer's going to expect a list of employees, not by name, just by what they do and so having some understanding of what their roles are, what you're paying them, that kind of information. Depending upon what kind of company it is, what industry you're in, for us, we would prefer to buy a company that has W-2 employees, that are paying them properly, not paying them under the table, not doing 1099s, because it's really easy for those 1099s if they have multiple companies that they're working for them to go elsewhere when the company gets purchased. Whereas because we're employee owned, we're really looking for companies that have long tenured employees that want to stay and want to continue working. Now that's just us. There are other buyers out there that's less of a concern. But for us, because the people doing the work are so key to how well the service is delivered, we are looking for companies that have really well tenured W-2 employees.
Very cool. Like, do you have any stories here of what like would make you walk away from a deal or make you make the deal less valuable to you? Do you have any stories here?
Yeah, so I'm on a board of a nonprofit organization that buys companies in terms of an employee-owned companies. And there is a company, a software development company that they were looking to buy. And it turns out it was a husband and wife in the States here in the US. And then he had 30 employees working for him, all overseas, all 1099s. And it was really difficult to buy that company because they weren't doing anything unique. All those overseas employees were just contractors that were being contracted to work. He's marking them up 10% or something like that. It was like a staffing company almost. And they weren't doing anything unique. And it was going to be really difficult to ensure going forward if the husband and wife, sell the company, what exactly are you purchasing? And they had, I think we have it here in a moment, they had a high concentration of income revenue in one client too. So it was really not worth very much at all because of that. Yeah. So this next one is this company, 80% of their revenue was coming from one government contract, even though they had the government contract for, I think it was like 12 years or something like that. It came up for renewal every year, and it would have been very easy for that to have been lost. I got bit by this with one company that I purchased right before the um,
Pandemic.
COVID. Yeah, right before the pandemic. I closed on it in February of 2020, took ownership in March. 2 weeks later, like 75% of the business evaporated because that one company closed their doors. And my plan in buying the company was it's going to take me a couple years, but if I can hold that large client that they had in place and just add additional companies, I'll be able to reduce its income concentration. Well, when the pandemic hit, I wasn't able to do that, and I learned a valuable lesson for sure. So I'm keen on that in the future, making sure that they don't have income concentration, revenue concentration in a single client.
What kind of percentages, like for any kind of company would be like too high of a percentage, like with one client or so?
Yeah, so pretty much anytime it's over 50%, that's too much. But if it's under 50%, what they might do is they may discount that revenue. So they may say, oh, well, 50% of your revenue is coming from this one client. Therefore, we're going to give you a multiple of EBITDA a half as much as what we'll give on the rest, which is more diversified. So sometimes they won't walk away. They'll just look at that because, we're a larger organization. And if I buy a company, let's say I find a company that 100% of their revenue comes from one client and they're maybe just 4 employees, they bring that into my company and now it's only 5% of my revenue or something like that. What I'll do is instead of paying them upfront for that company, instead I'll give them some kind of earnout. Like as long as this company stays with me after I buy your company, then I will pay you X amount of dollars over the next 2 or 3 years or something. So you're more likely to get an earnout if you have a high concentration of wealth or revenue.
Tough lesson learned there for sure. Great. So I wanted you to share a little bit about your ESOP story um, for Intrust IT.
Yeah, so in 2012, I set a goal for my employees, telling them by 2020 I wanted to be an ESOP, employee stock ownership plan, where that takes a portion of the company and transition it into the ownership of the employees. Because of my father's experience also doing an ESOP back in 2004. So I thought it was a great way to deal with in the IT industry. There's a lot of turnover, and being able to offer them ownership in the company that they're help build, I think was really important. So we did that, put that goal in place in 2012, and we hit all the goals in 2018 and became an ESOP in 2019. And what that now allows us to do is people that are thinking about selling their company, they're more inclined to sell that company to us because they know that their employees are going to be taken care of and they're going to become an owner in the bigger organization that's buying them. So we did an acquisition. We did 3 acquisitions in 2021. Of that group, we had no voluntary departures. So we just had one person that wasn't a good fit for their skill set and what we needed. So after 3 years now, we've had nobody leave the organization other than that one person that we that wasn't a good fit, which is very unusual because in most acquisitions that occur, they expect after 18 months or so to be have a 50% turnover. Half of the people turn over because they don't like the new culture, they don't like this or that. So we really felt that was a win for us that we were able to maintain all those employees, which is why I said back on that slide about contractors versus W-2, we're looking more for companies with employees because we want them to become employee owners in our organization. And we can't do that. We could if they're a 1099 in the US, but if they're overseas, that's something we have to have a separate trust to be able to have them participate.
Thank you. Super, super neat story there. Um, one of the things I wanted to mention is I think you all have done a wonderful job leveraging how employee ownership benefits the customers who choose to work with you. It provides like stability because they're going to get to work with people who are long-term, more ethical leadership, and you get a motivated workforce, which I think benefits the clients a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that the other thing that we do that's unique is we don't have any long-term agreements. All of our agreements are month to month. And one of the reasons we can do that is because we're an ESOP, we're not trying to sell to private equity, where a lot of companies that are looking to sell in the future, they're going to want to sign 2, 3, 4, 5 year agreements with their clients. We just do month to month. So, and that's why at the beginning, when I went over those 7 things, having long-term signed contracts is nice for us, but it's not necessarily something that we require or pay a premium for. We're fine with people just have regular month-to-month agreements that shows that they're doing a great job servicing, and we will continue to do that as well.
Yeah, you guys have some language around, you win your customers' trust every month, or you re-win their business every month. I think that's really strong.
Yeah,
It makes it easy for someone who's maybe new to knowing that they need managed services to make the decision to go ahead and work with you.
yeah. If we suck, you aren't stuck. That's what we tell our clients.
Great. Great. So we are, Big Orange, we built the website for Intrust IT. I feel it's a really great website and the way they leverage the employee ownership, the dedicated workforce I mentioned, and ways to leverage if you are an employee-owned company. Some other things that people can do is, highlight your track record of success with case studies, showcase industry awards that, underline your reliability, customer satisfaction ratings. Yours all is great. It's neat how you share that right there on your homepage of your website, and sections about your customer service philosophy. Um, on your homepage hero, you also have a great home hero statement right there in the homepage. It speaks right to how you're employee owned. So I think what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I'll just pop into your website and share some of the neat highlights that I think are best in class for other people considering ESOPs and how to leverage it. Tatiana, am I sharing my screen? Can you see my screen? Kind of going off the script here.
I can see.
So right here, yeah, great. Good. So make IT easy on yourself, make it easy on yourself. You win when you choose employee-owned IT support services and cybersecurity. That employee-owned right here in the home hero, I think is really excellent. Nice, great, smiling, happy people of the people you're going to get to work with. Leveraging the story brand philosophy here quite a lot. Then we go right into a loss aversion section where you're sharing the problems that people face when they choose when they're looking for either changing IT services companies or looking to add an IT service company to their what they're doing. And then the no long-term contracts. This is the authority statement of Intrust IT. It's expressed a few different ways on this website, but the no long-term contracts we talked about, 99% customer satisfaction, employee owned since 2019, and then the 24/7, 365 Security Operations Center. I think that's some great content. Is there anything else, Tim, about what you guys are doing that we should share related to how you're, leveraging?
Yeah, that right there, that customer stat scores, which is 99% or higher going back to 2016 now. So long history of how we've done dealing with our customer stats.
Great. Another neat place where you guys share your Yeah, talk to an employee every time, talk to an owner every time you call. I think that's in your About Us page or in your other uh, reach out where people can reach out to you guys as well.
Yeah, if you go to our owners page,
Yeah, that's it.
um, I think that's great
That's it.
because, yeah, this is everybody, all the employees are owners. So, right there it says every time you call Intrust, you're speaking to an owner. So,
I think that's great. Love to share that. And then like a employee owner certified badge there, very neat. You guys were one of the first people to do this really fun rollover state as well. Great. So just wanted to share some of the ways you can leverage being an ESOP. Great. All right. Yep. Contact us page. I think I covered most everything. Oh yeah, we covered most everything I wanted to cover as well. Um, Tim, did you have anything else to add, or Tatiana, are there any questions in the
yeah, we're at 30 minutes now. So I don't have anything else to add. I think we did a great job covering kind of what to look for, or how to prepare for being acquired. And we are always looking for new acquisitions, especially in Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, Lexington, Louisville, pretty much in our geographic area is what we're looking for. So if anybody listening to this is looking to sell their company next year, the year after, 5 years from now, and want to talk, definitely reach out to us. We have on our website, there is a section about sell to Intrust, which goes into some more detail about some of the other benefits of selling to us, an employee-owned company.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tim, for being our guest here today. We'll have a transcription of this and the video of it on the LinkedIn Live when we're done. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate
All right,
it.
bye.